Okay, is everybody able to hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Oh, listen. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our second um, EERLF stakeholder meeting here. I'll just get on into it and we can go from there. So, if you were at our first, we have a few new friends as well. We'll be talking about our Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund Capitalization grant here today. And in this session, we'll be going over an overview of what that funds look like, the potential or program designs around that, and also to discuss the pros and cons of those potential program designs and get some possible RFP criteria, just some feedback and open discussion with that. And over here, we'll go through our overview, visions, and goals. So ideally, what we put in our application, what we would like to see done with the money and get some feedback from you as well. And next steps coming forward in the next month and feedbacks and questions, okay? So just for our new friends, GFA, we are Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. We act as the water, state, and energy office. We're here to conserve and improve energy and land and water resources throughout the state of Georgia. And we do that with our programs providing economic development, environmental help, as well as conserving and also improving onto those natural resources we help out as well. So that's just a little bit about us. And here is a background of kind of where the money pot has came from. Originally comes from the bipartisan infrastructure law bill that was signed a couple years back with the new administration to fund several projects throughout the US to get EV, environmentally friendly things funded and out to more of a focus group in the Justice 40 area. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And some of the funding that's coming out of that, approximately 10.8 million is going to be for our state funding programs. And that's something that we have always had established here at GFA that goes with, our mission of upholding our land, water, and energy resources. So generally, those funds will always be in that program. And to pertain to our energy efficiency revolving loan fund, we'll be getting 2.3 million funds of grants. And that was initially the start of the bill announcement. And then as well as our weatherization program, we've had around for a while throughout Georgia. Funding from the bill will be coming through that, and that's 84 million we'll get towards that as well. And a lot of these are able to coexist and be bundled together to help the program that we'll be talking about today. And just under the bipartisan law bill act, there is federal requirements that everything needs to adhere to. One big one is Davis-Bacon that we'll be really honing in on, and I have an update from last month about that. And also another big one is BABA, Build America, Buy America, and those will need to be adhered to for all projects and things like that going through the bill stage, or coming out of bill, sorry. And to give a quick overview of what our energy efficiency law revolving loan fund is, this is our funding source that came from bill, as I said, that originally was about 2.3 that you saw in the last couple other slides. However, since October 2nd, 2023, some of the states that did not want the money, they were allocated out um, through the rest of the other states that did want the funding. So now we're at a final count of the 2.453, $810 million for that. And this fund is here to establish a revolving loan fund in Georgia. And what that means is working with organizations like you and the financial space to create these loans and grants for residential and commercial residents in Georgia. And these funds will be available until they're expended. So that can be a couple years, that could be up to 10 years or so on and so forth, depending just how they are broken down and spent. And as of through the Bill Act, of course, there is a Justice 40 very high initiative, and those are kind of your low income, energy burden communities throughout the state. So that will be a high focus point for the EERLF grant. And then, of course, if you were not new, we are anticipating the funds to be awarded back in fall of 23. However, we have just recently got an update that, announcement should be coming out soon. But as of right now, we have not received the funds in hand. So we are still awaiting that. And then Kelly, if you had any other inputs or updates just on a general background of that, feel free to go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the funding, even though we haven't gotten the notice of award yet, it is formula funds. So we'll definitely be receiving it. We just thought we would have the award notice by now, at which time it starts a kind of a time clock for us to get this money available to communities. So when we were scheduling this call, we thought that we would be a little bit further ahead than we are. Unfortunately, we still haven't gotten that notice of award, but we do know that we have a little bit, there's some FAQ that was published by DOE about the timing of having funds available. And when you're working with a third party, like we will be, the 180-day clock starts from that time, from the time that that contract is executed, or 6 months from the date of the award of funding. So we have a little more flexibility than we originally thought, but we still want to make the funding available as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And that just actually is an easy segue into my next slide here is our grant timeline. Like Kelly was just saying, we do have a little bit more flexibility now since we've gotten FAQ came out from DOE stating kind of really when that timeline starts. Excuse me, and the route that you're taking with your program. So still right now we are in that funds awarded box here, being anticipated in fall of 2024, coming out soon. But after that, the RFP is still have plans to be available here at the end of the month, beginning of February. And that won't push back any of the timeline or program designs, as we can still continue forward with the rest of our timely dates. And then, of course, once the award has been awarded to us, there will be a notification sent along with RFP being opened as well. And so we're going into the visions and goals for the ERLF program here. We would like to try to maximize this as much as possible, since it is a little bit smaller of a pot of funds, rounding out to a little bit less than 2.5 million here. And this revolving loan fund can be used, like I said, for commercial and residential properties, and that includes your nonprofit organizations, small community businesses, public buildings, residential buildings can be dwellings of 1 to 3 housing units, no more than 3 stories high. So it can be kind of a small property owner, maybe a tenant renting things out. Help them with some upgrades there. And the funds can be applied for your energy audits, upgrades, and retrofits. Seeing that, we're hoping that a lot of the energy audits and upgrades will be bundled together to get your maximum leverage out of that money, since you will be required to have an energy audit and home assessment before those retrofits and upgrades will be can take place. And out of that 2.5 million, of course, there is some reserved for your technical assistance and grants. And grants will just be, your just funds out of the door, which would be great for those that are really in those maybe hard times. And then 10% can be used for your administrative expenses. And of course, that is just your upkeep, background, things like that. And for the presentation wise, we just keep it down to loan loss reserves and interest buy down rates. There is a few other program designs that the EERLF has mentioned, but just honing in on those, we think those would be the two best or strong options for Georgia that we'll be talking about here. And I know a lot of you all are obviously in the financial space, but just to give you a little bit background of what a loan loss reserve is, it may sound a little simple, but that is just setting your pot of money, a percentage of that whole program fund to the side where it'll be background and used for defaulting loans, troubling loans, or things like that. It's more of an emergency stash, if you might say. And your interest rate buy down option is buying down that interest rate, basically kind of what it says, and giving that lower interest rate from maybe a 10 down to a 5 or so what you have it, and giving that monthly payment, giving a lower monthly payment to that customer, and simply just buying down the interest rate, and gives a little flexibility to the lender of how many people they also lend out to. Sorry. And then here, just to give you just a few rough examples of kind of what the loans and grant opportunities can look like, starting all the way from mini loans to your commercial loans. Commercial loans, like we said, are kind of those nonprofit, small businesses, areas that we're going to focus on. But the mini ones, you can do a programmable thermostat, Energy Star, washer and dryers, dishwasher, things like that. Home appliances, windows and door leaks are fairly easy to get fixed and at low cost. And then if you want to go all the way down to your small businesses and commercial heating, HVAC units, LED lighting may be good and helpful. Say their soup kitchen, maybe want to upgrade some of their kitchen appliances, occupancy sensors, and etc. And of course, all of these numbers are theoretically including your energy audit, as that usually runs between about $400 to $600. And we're hoping to have that money and loan money included in those people wanting those upgrades when they think about that. And sorry. And then, as I mentioned, of course, there will be a need for a home assessment before any of these upgrades or retrofits are applied. And that's why we're hoping for people to consider the loan amount and that pot of funds that they would need to spend on the home assessment there. And going back to a little bit of the bill overall focus about being Justice 40. Oops. About being Justice 40 here. 40% of bill has a critical focus on those in low, medium income, disadvantaged, and energy burdened communities. And those can be all separately identified or meshed together and um, combined to see who's really, really suffering in those justice 40 communities and at that disadvantage and underserved, as you may say. These funds should directly or indirectly benefit those in that areas. And those can look like just a safer living of a house, a no broken window. You'll have um, safer living conditions. You'll have heat staying in your homes and things like that. And it can generally just also make your home happier. You can feel better about yourself. You are more motivated. Has a lot of direct and indirect benefits that could go on for days. And within those low, medium income, disadvantaged, and energy burdened communities, we have a great partner that we had partnered with previously on another program that has came up with about a 25 to 30 list of communities, counties, I'm sorry, and regions throughout Georgia that here in the second map I will show you. So this is the left side being your disadvantaged communities, the ones in the gray right here. And then on the right side, you'll see your energy burden, the ones that's a little bit more colorful, yellow, red, and orange here. And so our partners was able to combine both of these statistics and also some other factors and bring them all in and provide us with about 20 to 25 or sorry 25 to 30 counties that would really benefit from these funds heavily. And that list will be coming out as soon as we have our webpage up as well. But just to note, there won't be any constraints around the counties as of right now. We just wanted to put those out to show primarily who will have those priorities and who will be the prime focus throughout Georgia to take on the ERLF funds and loans and grants and like that. Excuse me. And so in our application approach, we did choose to kind of highlight the LLR approach, the credit enhancement, which, just thinking of more of the longevity, the better leverage, the flexibility it'll give not only just the program design as a whole, but also the lender with, opening up and feeling a little bit more relaxed on giving loans to maybe someone with lower credit scores or a higher debt or anything like that, just giving them more comfortability to do so. And then also with our great weatherization program, WAP, we were able to think about how the funds can be bundled with our own program here at GFA. And kind of that's just kind of the approach that we were thinking about there. Because our weatherization program is able to help with the air duct sealing and HVAC improvements and walls and attic space and things like that. But when you come to, fixing leaks or the appliance aspect, they can really hone in and get a bundle of both if they're in need of a big upgrade or a big retrofit after having that energy audit. And then, and I did just want to go back and say that although that this was the approach that we stated, kind of loosely in our application, it's anything that we have to stick to. This is kind of just the thought that we had at that time being over the summer of what might be best or what might be able to actually spread out the longest and reach the most people. But we were definitely open to an IRB or any other type of program designs to best suit the Georgians here. And then to dig a little bit deeper into the opportunities here about the program designs, like I mentioned, we have our application approach, our LLR, And then we have been exploring the interest rate buy down, which will be known as the IRB after this. These are all very, very rough numbers. I am not a finance girly, so please don't come at me. But these are just rough numbers that we wanted to kind of put in places to give you an idea of what the program actually will end up with after the TA and the admin fees have been taken out. And then of course, so here just to go through LLR, approximately we're hoping to have as much funds as we can allocated to the actual program. Of course, there will be a lot of work and some grants that we want to set aside and properly put a good fund to that. But here, the LLR, we would like to at least have 1.8 million technical assistance and grants. Here, we're thinking about 425,000 technical assistance, getting you up to speed if you're needing more help or training. We can definitely get those resources and provide assistance to that, and also open up a few of those grants where they don't have to go through the actual LLR program or risk defaulting if they're in some type of situation that they would better fit a grant. And then of course the admin about 200,000, then that becomes your monitoring, reporting, and things like that back to GFA, and just upholding and standing up the program until the money is all ran out. And that's also going to include just like either program, residential and small business. It's a great opportunity here to bundle with WAP, our weatherization program. And here I will talk at the last bullet point here just shortly about the Davis-Bacon update, okay? And then here on the opposite side, of course, you have your interest rate buy down, hopefully about 1.7 million, subject to change, of course. And TA and grants about half a million. I think in the technical assistance would be a little bit greater on here on this side, and also the grants will be a little bit higher on this side as well. It's a favored approach throughout the US. We have seen, of course, having the money taken off straight up front, and they have that lower interest rate. We see that definitely being favorable. And just of talks, this is also subject to change, looking to maybe a 3 to 5% interest rate buy down for the recipient. And that is definitely subject to change, like I said, but to just get that really big chunk of money knocked off for them up front. But I know that will go by fast. And this program design will be heavily targeted on Justice 40, given that the approach is heavily favored. So it will have a lot of eyes and will probably be going out the door a lot faster than your LLR program. So with that being said, we want to hone in and definitely target those Justice 40 communities a little bit harder to make sure they are reaping the most benefits they can before the funds are run down. And with that program as well, with that program as well, you would want to prioritize summer and winter emergency loans. Those are when your HVAC unit heating cooling goes out, or you may have a leak that may be troubling some in summer or winter. And that is also a program design overall from DOE within the EERLF RLD program. And then down to the last bullet point here that's in both programs, Davis-Bacon being one of those federal requirements coming from the bill law. Just an update from last month, Davis-Bacon is adhering to the employment of your contractors and staff and anybody that is on the project. That will be need to be a year or two until the funds are expended. Before then, it was only up until 5 years. But now Davis-Bacon and most likely BABA, of course, will need to be required and reported on throughout the entirety of the program until the funds are expended. And there is a little bit more information that will be coming back on that in a couple weeks, and I will definitely give you guys an update on that on our website before that RFP comes out. But that will be something to heavily consider. It shouldn't mess up too many things, but it is a constant report and something that an institute or agency will need to be heavily knowledgeable on going forward. And while we just went over these great programs and, seeing how much money we have here and possibly how many Georgians we are able to affect, everything has a pro and con, of course. So what are the pro cons of these both programs? The loan loss reserve program is gonna hopefully not, but foresee some struggling to market out. It's a program designed where you use the money kind of when something goes wrong. We don't want to say that, but it's kind of your back, soft, squishy money. So it's going to be a little bit harder to struggle, a little bit harder to market it out and get your customers wanting to take out of these loans and things like that. Giving you knowing that you have the flexibility, getting them more comfortable to take out more loans, not knowing the back end, of course, of that. And it's going to be a little bit probably of a slower increase of loan intake. Maybe people might not be as comfortable not knowing the whole situation, or they might just see it as, the typical loan from your institution that you've been doing all the time, and they don't really see anything different at that. So the little marketing challenge may be the weakness on the loan loss reserve side. However, but you have easier reporting with the slower pace of the loan loss reserve. You have that flexibility and ease with reporting on. We're hoping a lot of things will change from quarter to quarter, right? But you might have some just constant reporting, some copy paste things. If there's not a lot of activity going on, especially if you're not defaulting a lot of loans or anything like that on the back end, your reporting will be fairly easy on that end. And your interest rate buy down, your funds would decrease faster, and I think that's just kind of something that everybody knows. If you knock down the interest rate, that's just money being taken off at the front, and it's not being replenished nor replaced or anything like that. It's just being paid out, and that's what it is. So those funds will be decreased a lot faster, and the small business and commercial buy downs in that program design are going to be higher. So we have to determine, what that percentage or what that looks like when it comes down to the residential. We really want to focus and get our Justice 40 communities, mostly residential homeowners, most of the benefits of this program being a small amount of money. And you take into account, of course, the small businesses and commercials that will take quite a bigger chunk, depending, of course, on what their upgrades or retrofits are. It's going to take a lot more money out of that. And with an RBR decreasing faster, that could run out insanely fast. But it still can create defaults for the lender, with us just buying, or the program just not buying down the interest rate. That's kind of just the sole purpose is, making sure they have a lower monthly payment, something they're able to afford, being a little lenient on some of the entry level criteria, and so what you have it, but the program still has no control on the payment or the back end or the closing of the loan. So there will still be a potential for the lender or the recipient of this award to have defaults and kind of have an upside down loan, if you say it. So there is pros and cons to both. And I just wanted to really point those out and get everybody thinking of, what do you see the pros and cons of an LLR or an IBR? Do my pros match up kind of with some historical facts if you guys have history or are familiar with any of these programs or have operated one in the past? Just want to kind of put those out there, not knowing there's a perfect solution, but there will be some things that will have to be worked on. And next step, as Kelly gave us an update earlier, of course, we're awaiting award from DOE. We have a really recent update stating, that should be coming out fairly soon. Either way, we will still be on that timeline of getting the RFP out by the end of January, beginning of February. It will be open, and all of y'all will have first email dibs on, stating that the RFP has been open. So please definitely make sure you look out for that. And then, of course, this month we will launch our web page. Hopefully that'll be coming out in before the end of the month, of course, giving you all just basic information, giving you links on where you can find more information from DOE and also the federal requirements that you have to uphold while running this program. So that will be coming out soon. And yeah, and that's a little bit it. That is our ERF second session. I know that isn't too much new stuff, but we definitely went over a little bit of our program design here. Gave you a little bit more of a meatier slide on the potential route. But I would love to ask a few questions. Now I can go ahead and into my slideshow here. Excuse me. And just see if we have anybody in the audience looking to speak on these topics here.
Miracle, I don't know if you can see the chat, so I'll go ahead and read Matthew Brown's question.
Okay.
It says, do you know if LLR funds retain their federal character after they've been expended for projects and financing is fully satisfied?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Do you know if the LLR funds retain their federal character after they've been expended for projects and the financing is fully satisfied?
So no, just up until they're actually fully expended, the reporting is all wrapped up, it's closed out. So the administrative money's been gone, the TA grant money's gone, and just say the program design 1.7 has all been spent. After that, you as an institute won't have to uphold to any of the bill federal requirements. So Davis-Bacon, BABA, IRI. So no. Awesome. Well, good question. And so I just did want to get in a few things here. And please feel free to add these in the chat or take yourself off mute. Yes, you can feel free to take yourself off mute if you like and answer. But I just wanted to kind of open up with my last slide. Do you personally see any advantages or disadvantages that, of course, I didn't list them all, but anything I didn't list or mention, just wanted to open up the floor for that.
Miracle, there's one other one that is just got added to the chat too that I'll start with as well. Nathaniel Wayne asked, as a commercial lender, would my client be a business that wants upgrades to their building or office space, or the business that actually is in this industry that performs this kind of work?
If I'm understanding your question right, I believe the client as the business would want to perform the work. I don't think the technical office space. So like if they're renting out of that office space, they're not the ones who are taking on the loan or the energy audit. It would be the sole business itself. Um, and Shane, if you're on the call, please correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, I think it would be the actual individual client business entity itself taking on that role. And Nathaniel, feel free. I can definitely follow up in the email if I didn't answer your question correctly, but I believe that is what you were getting at. Yeah. Does anybody else have any
Miracle,
other
it's
comments?
Matthew Brown. I thought I'd take myself off mute. You were looking for some comments or maybe additional questions on the LLR versus the IRB.
Yes.
Um, and I guess maybe this is and a loss reserve is only going to get you, a certain level of kind of benefit, or customers a certain level of benefit, because in the end, it's going to cover losses. But it's not, that doesn't bring you, it only brings a certain level of interest rate benefit. But are you contemplating having two separate programs, one for loss reserve, one for interest rate buy down, or are you contemplating having a program that could really do both? In other words, have a loss reserve that might bring it down to a certain level, and an interest rate buy down that would bring it down even further.
I
And
believe
I'll
we're
just put it as my if I can, I'll just say recommendation would be number two, if just to throw that in there.
Thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate that feedback. Yeah, no, we're definitely open to both. As I mentioned, we had kind of a soft program design or thought in our application. Of course, DOE kind of wants to see at least where your head is at. And we saw the LOR fitting best. But with it being two different program designs, I think that is definitely something we are looking into. Of course, the admin fee will be a little bit split up at that point. Kind of maybe taking away a little bit more money, but kind of generally, like you're saying, you know, a program design that actually directly helps the customer up front. What does that look like? How can we maneuver and make that happen? Because residential, we would want that immediate help, and commercial and small business can kind of go more so the LOR route. But that is just something we're definitely talking and working through right now. Perfect. Does anybody else have any other comments? Awesome. If seeing none, I'll go into just my second question. Based off some of the numbers that I roughly gave you, so saying the LOR program itself will be 1.7, around 1.7 million, and then the IBR, its program itself, possibly could be around 1.8. You guys in the financial space and dealing with a lot of these already, what do you predict GFA and you all could reach home wise? Our goal here hopefully is to reach at least 500 homes. But please tell me if that's not realistic. But I did want to get a little bit of feedback on, if there was one or the other approach, how far do you think this money could go realistically? If anybody had any feedback, or definitely can put it in the chat, that would be great.
Miracle, Matthew Brown
Matthew.
again. I'll just give you a rough numbers. I'm not going to try to do the full multiplication in my head, but typical project size for a home, you're going to see about $10,000-$11,000. That's kind of our experience. With an interest rate buy down, kind of depending how far you want to go down, how many points you're buying off, you could, and the term. But for a 5-year loan, maybe you're looking at 20% current interest rates.
Mhm.
You know, so you're going to get, you know, 20% of it's going to cost you $2,000 on a $10,000 loan to bring down your interest rate, kind of the levels you're talking about.
Mhm.
Maybe you might do a little bit better. So you can you can do the multiplication there based on how much money you've got available. In a loss reserve, you might get you know 10x kind of so you have $1 million, that could equal a $10 million program.
Mhm.
So you know that's, you can kind of do your multiplication there based on a $10,000 project cost. In the
Yeah.
commercial space, you're going to see, you know, huge variation in projects. So it's hard to know. There's a lot of
Mhm.
projects in that, you know, sub $50,000. You could choose a $25,000 project size, but there's huge variation there. So it's hard to kind of give you an estimate of project numbers.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And that's definitely something we've been in agreement with and kind of sorting through of, what is a general commercial small business, project type, and how much would that actually take away from the residential? Because, our focus here is to hone in on Justice 40 and hopefully, prioritize the residential aspect of this. Um, Knowing generally, the small businesses and nonprofits can take a little bit more of a hit or a little bit more on than just your typical, four-person family home. Um, but yes, I appreciate that comment. And Nathaniel, I see you're off. Do you have any comments?
Yes. Uh, I was just thinking of the past couple projects that I've done before, where they may have usually like micro loans that are 50,000 or less, but when it comes to the Davis Bacon requirements, that's usually the hardest part. I'm out of a small office, so we really don't have anyone that um, operates with Davis Bacon as much. So we leave that up to the contract to make sure they have somebody in place. But
Mm-hmm.
for the smaller projects, from what I've seen, a lot of contractors don't deal with that just because the project is so small and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be maybe done in 30, 60 days, to where it's not worth putting the effort into the reporting part. That's what I've just seen in the market. So a lot of times, if I do have a fund or a revolving fund that requires um, Davis Bacon, I may choose another fund that doesn't have that stipulation on it for the proceeds to get it done, because my client is going to have a hard time finding and get those type of items that's needed for that reporting done. And
Mm-hmm.
that even contracts told me before that they're not going to do the deal if that requirements put on them.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Yeah. I know that that's definitely something hard to uphold and then, make sure you're monitoring and reporting on as, whether being a small or large institute. Um, but that's definitely interesting. I know it's a little bit harder to convince somebody to switch or take on another job or maybe reach a higher certification, but we're hoping with the TA assistance money that we could help somebody get there if you're kind of lacking in the reporting side or the quality control side. And maybe you're not lacking there. Maybe it's just a conversation of convincing, kind of like, that they just don't want to bother with it. You can't convince them to do otherwise if they're doing a great job. And you do see that a lot, of course, in the construction and building industry. But I appreciate that input.
Oh, thank you.
And that kind of just leads to actually my last final question. How, with the Davis Bacon being, changed and such a huge factor of um, being adhered to until the end of the money has been expended, what do you usually see the capabilities of, the requirements or the reporting that you already have to do on most of your loans, and how much more effort and time do you see that this program will, add to that reporting and, maybe an extra person in your industry? Yes, Nathaniel?
I comment on that, and correct me if I'm wrong. You were saying what would it look like once the the funds are already expended and is not as much reporting that's needed for the project? That was the question.
Sorry, it maybe I got a little twisted. But just generally, how do you feel about, the pre-qualified contractors and auditors and the reporting as a whole? Because we would, ideally like to have pre-qualified, vendors and contractors, of course, like your institute works with. Um, and adhering to Davis-Bacon now that it's in there, how do you feel of that playing a part in the adding report? Because you guys already do reports, but this will be another extraneous thing to report on, and it has to be, dotting the T's and crossing all the I's, right? Or dotting the I's and crossing all the T's. But it will be something really heavily looked at. Do you think that is a stress factor to, institutes like yours or any other financial institute to add that onto their reporting duties?
Well, I can speak for my organization. Again, we're a fairly small organization, maybe about 10 to 15 staff, but it probably would add some additional pressure on us. But if we had things in place, like if we had the contractors that are, already on board with it, it'll make it easier. If we have maybe someone in place, maybe with the TA grant, if that has specialized training for that, for in-house to monitor, that will probably be some good assistance. It's just, again, for my example, for the loans or the clients that I work with that maybe have interest in something in this field, the reporting plays a big part on getting the work done. And I've literally ran into multiple contractors that they just say the project's just too small to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Matthew. I would echo that. I think the Davis-Bacon for small projects is going to be tough. Not just the reporting, but some of the wage requirements, I suspect, going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
And I speak the wage requirements usually from the pricing standpoint. I've seen those even had more than the minimum requirements on some of the deals. Just the report, taking the time out to do the reporting. Some of them may have been a little bit off, but it was, competitive. But a couple of deals that I've seen that required the wage determination, they were pretty on point for most part of them. It's just the additional work that the contractor and the staff probably has to do to get the reporting done and make sure it's done correctly.
Right. Well, good. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. That was great. Those are all the questions I have for right now. If anybody has any other open comments or want to go back to any of the slides, feel free to ask. All right, seeing no comments. I really appreciate you guys once again for joining us for our second and last session of our ELRF stakeholder meeting. After this, first steps are getting the webpage out. Of course, that will be on GFA's website, and that RFP will be coming out to you guys here next month as well. In the meantime here, I do have a few other questions I would like to individually send all of you guys. It'll just be a small little questionnaire. If you could, if you don't mind just answering the questions to your best of the abilities, you don't have to answer them all. But we would just like to have a little bit further feedback from you guys, and I'll be sending that out tomorrow along with this recording as well. And if you do want to have any other one-on-one meetings, please feel free to reach out to me or Kelly at mwilson@gifa.com. But yes, everybody should have my information. This has been a great call. Really appreciate all the feedback again. But seeing no other comments left, I'll give you guys a few minutes back.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a good one.